The first time my father took me to the Rebbe for Farbrengen was for Simchas Torah, Tovshin Chai, Tovshin Yud Ches. It's not the first time I saw the Rebbe. We were in Yechidus, Tovshin Yud Gimel. Our family came from France after the war. They were in France for a few years, and then they moved to America, and the joint sent them to Cleveland, but they stopped in New York, and they went into Yechidus. This was all Tovshin Yud Gimel. So I was part of that Yechidus as a kid. Actually, at that Yechidus, the Rebbe asked me if I could say Shema, and I actually knew how to say Shema, but I was a kid, I was embarrassed, so I didn't say the Shema. And I heard later that same night another family went in, also they came from Europe, and the Rebbe also asked the kid to say Shema, and he did, and the Rebbe gave him a silver dollar, so I really felt very bad, but there's nothing I could do about it. But that was the Yechidus. But for Farbrengen, my father took me for Simchas Torah Tovshin Yud Ches. So we were there, Hishana Rabbo. So after davening, the Rebbe gave out lekach. Like the Rebbe would always give out lekach to the orchim who weren't there at Yom Kippur, so he would give them lekach on Hishana Rabbo. The Rebbe would give the lekach standing by his sukkah. His sukkah was not where it's now, where it's in front of 770. It was in the back of 770. The shul wasn't built there yet. Obviously, it wasn't built till Tovshin Chaf Aleph. So there was the shalash, the yard in the back, which had like a sukkah, a big sukkah. The Farbrengen and davening would be there. And by the sukkah, in front of that sukkah, of that shalash, there was the Rebbe's sukkah. That was in the back of the building of 770. So the Rebbe stood by that sukkah and gave lekach. And there was a line for lekach. Obviously, not a long line like later years, but there was a long line with a lot of people waiting. And so was my father, Allah Shalom, and myself. We were waiting in line to get our turn for lekach. And the Rebbe Bechlal, lekach, since there's a big elam, the Rebbe wouldn't stop and have a discussion with somebody. But when it came to our turn, my father got a piece of lekach, and when it came for me to get, the Rebbe turns around to me, and the Rebbe says to me, "Was hast du gelernt letztens? What did you learn lately?" In the cheder that I learned in Cleveland, we had learned in Elul, Mesichte Beya. So I told the Rebbe, Mesichte Beya. So the Rebbe says to me, "What are the halachas? Welche halachas hast du letztens gelernt? Which halachas did you learn lately?" Later I realized that he probably meant, after I answered Mesichte Beya, he meant which halachas, which inyonim in Mesichte Beya. But I didn't understand, so I assumed he's asking now which halachas in Shulchan Aruch did we learn lately. So I answered him, Hilchas Shofar. So he asks me a question, and he says, first he asks me, how many kelas darf man blosen? How many kelas do you have to blow on Rosh Hashanah? So I answered 100. Then the Rebbe says to me, das, was man da blosen 100 kelas, das medina die Gemara zinit. In other words, he assumed that I knew that it was not midaraisa, not all 100 are midaraisa. But what he was asking was that the fact that we have to blow 100, are they from the time of the Gemara? Is it from the Takanas Chazal from the Gemara? Or is it something that was from later on, from later years? I didn't know the answer. I was very embarrassed, but I didn't know the answer, so I didn't answer. So the Rebbe gave me a piece of lekach, and he said something, I think it was Lashon HaTevim Sukkah, I don't remember exactly what he said, and we went on. I was really afraid that when we go into Yechidus after Yontiv, the Rebbe is going to ask me other questions. So Poshet, I was very afraid the whole Yontiv going into Yechidus, but L'Peil, when I went to Yechidus, the Rebbe didn't ask me anything. But as far as the Farbrengen is concerned, this was the first time that was by a Farbrengen. And since I was young, I only got the Zeitige Sachen, a chapt of different small things from the Farbrengen, but the Teichen of the Siches was not something that I was able to grasp the Proteus in detail. But I do remember one thing which made a very great impression on me, even though I was a kid, words that the Rebbe said, and it's still in my mind. I don't know B'cheshet to what he said it, but he said these words. He was talking about Birur HaMidas. The person has to be mevarer, has to purify his midas. And the Rebbe stopped and he said, it's a schwere Zach, he said. It's a schwere Zach to mevarer the midas. And he stopped and he smiled and he said, Adarabe, proved what you said. Try it out and you'll see that it's a hard thing to be mevarer the midas. I don't know behemshuk to what he said it. I tried to look in the Hanochas to see, sichas from those days, from Simchas Torah and Farbrengen, to find it. I couldn't find it. So I don't know exactly behemshuk to what, but it's clear. I remember even as a kid, these words I remember, besides a few other things from the Farbrengens, but I remember this expression. Birer amit is a schwere Zach. Adarabe, proved what is a schwere Zach. And the Rebbe trying to bring out how important it is, even though it's hard.